At a family estate reunion, my aunt whispered, "She'll always be support staff in a family of leaders." I laughed, stayed quiet, and for 16 years, carefully placed people in every key role to dismantle her reputation. When the financial fraud cases hit, she was erased from every corporate history, and when she died, no obituary ran. No memorial, no stone. She simply disappeared. It started at a family reunion in Leesburg, Virginia. My grandfather had passed a few years earlier, but the estate was still in the family, and every summer, my aunts, uncles, cousins, and their kids all gathered under big white tents in the back field. There was catering, expensive wine, and the kind of fake smiles that only show up at family events where everyone secretly hates each other. I was 27, had a decent job in logistics, mid-level operations manager at a regional warehouse firm. Nothing glamorous. But I liked what I did, and I was finally starting to feel like I had some direction. That summer, I was pouring myself a glass of wine at the outdoor bar when Aunt Marlene sidled up next to me. Now Marlene was the aunt, the one who always had a fresh blowout, designer clothes, and a voice like a drill sergeant. She went to Wharton in the 80s, married a guy who worked in DC politics, and rode that connection ladder up into corporate PR. She had power. Real actual power. She cleaned up messes for CEOs and board chairs, and she made sure everyone in the family knew it. She asked me what I was up to, and I gave her the short version, something about restructuring workflows at my firm. I wasn't trying to impress her. I just didn't want to stand there in silence. She gave me this little smirk, like I was a child bragging about my finger painting. Then she leaned toward one of my cousins, her voice low, but not that low, and said, "She'll always be support staff in a family of leaders." It hit like a slap. There were people around. My brother. My cousins. Her oldest son, who was already working on the Hill. I felt the back of my neck go hot. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that was my only move. I laughed, nodded, and poured another drink. Pretended it didn't matter. But it did. That sentence sat in me like a splinter. She didn't say it to start a fight. She said it because she believed it. Like it was a fact. Like I wasn't even worth mocking directly. I was beneath her. That night when I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I just opened my laptop and started writing down every job she'd ever had. Every company. Every board. Every nonprofit, foundation, consulting gig, or podcast she'd appeared on. I made a spreadsheet. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I knew I wasn't going to forget. I stayed at that logistics firm for another 4 years. I worked hard. Moved up. I stopped thinking about making a name for myself and started thinking about watching how the names got made. Who talked in meetings? Who listened? Who made real decisions behind closed doors? Who actually pulled the strings? I started my own firm when I was 32. Nothing flashy. A management ops consultancy. Our pitch was simple. Cut waste, tighten communication. Make your org better from the inside. We weren't huge, but we were good. And I made sure our clients were the right kind of people, quietly powerful, deeply networked. The kind who remember who helped them when it mattered. And guess what? Marlene started showing up. Not in person, but in stories. Some of the clients I picked up had old ties to companies she used to work for. I asked questions. I listened. I never mentioned I was related to her. I just paid attention to what people said when they didn't think they were being watched. And when one of those companies hit a minor crisis, I got called in. They had a whistleblower situation, and they needed someone to help them tighten up before regulators started poking around. I kept my head down, did my job, but as I dug into their old comms files, I found something interesting. Documents with Marlene's name on them. Signatures. Emails. Notes where she'd advised executives to reframe certain numbers and public disclosures. Not illegal, not quite. But dishonest. Oh yeah. I wrote the report. I didn't frame her. I just included everything that needed to be included. 3 weeks later, she resigned from her consulting role at that company. No press release. No thanks for her service. Just gone. I realized something. I didn't need to attack her. I just needed to be patient. I started hiring carefully people who had once worked with her or around her. I didn't tell them what I was doing. I just made sure they were competent, loyal, and smart. If someone had left one of her firms under shady circumstances, I interviewed them. If they mentioned she'd taken credit for their work, I paid attention. Over the next few years, I built a team of quiet pros who knew how to keep records. Every whisper, every sidestep, every off-the-books expense she pushed onto her clients, my people saw it, logged it, documented it. I didn't leak it. I didn't blackmail anyone. I just waited. By 2021, she was trying to reinvent herself. Again. Started a podcast about women in corporate leadership. Took a board seat at a family-run equity firm based out of Seattle. Tried to push herself back into the circuit. I watched. And then one of her clients, a tech CEO in hot water over some shady offshore holdings, called us in to consult. We found the usual mess. But buried in it? A chain of documents Marlene had personally handled. Reworded reports. Delayed disclosures. A fake independent audit. I didn't report her. I just sent the file anonymously to their internal audit committee. Then walked away. She was quietly dropped from the board a month later. Fall 2024. I got an email from an old legal contact, someone who'd worked in estate law. Marlene had died in a rehab facility outside Philadelphia. Alcohol-related. Liver failure. No funeral was held. No obituary ran. Her name didn't appear on any memorial site. I checked every company she'd ever worked at. She'd been erased from all their leadership history pages. Even her old Wharton alumni profile was gone. Nothing. No one wanted to be connected to her. Not even in death. I didn't go to the estate. I didn't speak to her kids. I didn't even bring it up at Thanksgiving when someone mentioned her passing. Because it was more than that. It wasn't just that she died. It was that she disappeared. And I made sure of it. For a while I thought that was the end of it. But something unexpected happened after Marlene's death. Her youngest son Devin reached out to me. We hadn't spoken in years. At the last reunion he attended, he wore a tailored suit and talked nonstop about interning on Capitol Hill. I always thought he was just another spoiled legacy kid riding his mom's shadow. But now he was older, quieter, and the email he sent wasn't what I expected. Hey, I know we never really connected, but I wanted to talk to someone who knew her. Really knew her. Things have come up. Weird things. We met at a coffee shop in Georgetown. He looked tired. His eyes were sunken, and his hands shook when he took a sip of his drink. I cleaned out her place, he said. There were letters. Files. Some of them were about you. That made my stomach turn. I kept my face calm. What kind of files? He pulled out a small envelope. Inside were printouts, emails. My emails. Old ones. Stuff I had sent to clients years ago. Some were marked up in red ink. She'd written little comments next to them. Stuff like watch her tone. Or aggressive, no humility. I realized something then. She hadn't just insulted me that day at the reunion. She'd kept watching me. Studying me. For years. She had a folder called Risks, Devin said. You were the first file. There was more. One document was a draft email she never sent to one of the clients I had almost signed a deal with in 2017. In it, she warned them not to trust me. Said I had a pattern of overpromising and trouble with team cohesion. All lies. But if she'd sent it, it might have cost me that contract. I think she tried to block your rise, Devin said. She didn't just want me quiet. She wanted me erased too. I had been patient, methodical, quiet, but learning she played offense changed something in me. All that time I thought I was the only one moving the pieces. I was wrong. She had been watching me the entire time, trying to counter me, to keep me where she thought I belonged, support staff. But she'd failed. And now, I wanted to make sure that failure stuck. Permanently. 2 months later, I got a call from a law firm in New York. They represented a group of investors tied to one of Marlene's old advisory roles. The firm she worked with in 2016 had collapsed in 2022, and they were building a retroactive liability case against key figures in the leadership chain. Guess whose name was missing from the documents? Marlene's. Someone had wiped her involvement, not just from public pages, from internal ones, board minutes, email chains, even financial records. All gone. But I had backup copies. One of my old analysts had quietly pulled archives years ago, standard practice for us just in case. Those records proved Marlene had orchestrated several misleading reports, which directly led to inflated earnings and investor fraud. The firm asked if I'd share. I said yes, but with conditions. I wanted her name in every report, every deposition. I wanted her role publicly logged, not to punish the dead, but to erase the last myth that she'd ever been untouchable. The lawyers agreed. The documents went public. For the first time, newspapers mentioned her name not in tribute but in shame. Articles used phrases like key contributor to misleading practices and a pattern of reputational shielding. She didn't get a legacy. She got a warning label. I wasn't expecting to be mentioned. I had assumed I'd been cut out entirely, but there it was. She left me one thing. A single black velvet box. Inside was a lapel pin, gold with a single word engraved on the back. Leader.
No explanaschen.
No letter. Just that. I didn't know what to make of it. Was it sarcasm? A sick joke? Or was it something worse, her last attempt to control the story? I kept the pin in a drawer for weeks. Couldn't decide if I wanted to smash it or frame it. Part of me thought maybe it was guilt. A final concession. Maybe Marlene knew she'd lost. Maybe this was her way of saying I'd proven her wrong. But that didn't sit right. Marlene never admitted weakness. Not even when she was caught red-handed. If she left me that pin, it wasn't respect. It was bait. And I took it. I had the pin appraised just to be sure there wasn't some message hidden in the metal. There wasn't. But when I mentioned Marlene's name, the jeweler, an old guy in DuPont Circle, gave me a weird look. You related to her? He asked. I nodded. He tapped the counter. She used to come in here all the time. Not for jewelry. For the vault. What vault? Private rental vaults in the back. We don't advertise them. Clients pay top dollar for privacy. She had one for years. I felt the hair on my arms stand up. Is it still there? The guy scratched his head. No one's paid on it in a while. Legally, we're allowed to clear it out. But we haven't yet. It's locked. He paused. But if you can prove next of kin, I could let you see what's in it. The vault was small. No lights, just a tight little chamber with a safe box inside. Inside the box were 5 things. A burner phone. A manila envelope labeled Harrison. A USB drive. A handwritten ledger in Marlene's sharp, blocky handwriting. A sealed envelope with my name on it. I opened the letter first. If you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. You always were patient. I underestimated you. I shouldn't have. You're exactly like me. That should scare you. There's something you don't know. The reason I watched you. The reason I couldn't let you rise. You're not just my niece. You're the product of a choice I made 29 years ago. Ask your mother who Harrison really was. I stared at the page. My hands were trembling. Harrison. That name had never been mentioned in our family. Not at reunions, not in gossip, not once. I took the USB and the envelope and drove home like I was in a trance. The USB was encrypted, but the password was in the ledger. It took me 3 tries to guess the format, but when it unlocked, I saw folders of scanned documents, medical forms, emails, letters. One of the letters was from Marlene to my mother. It was dated the year before I was born. If you go through with this, I'll take care of her. But you can't let him stay in the picture. He's dangerous. You know that. I cleaned up one mess already. I'm not doing it again. Another was a medical release form with Marlene listed as emergency contact under an alias. Slowly, it started to click. She wasn't just monitoring me for sport. She was guarding a secret. My father. Harrison wasn't just some ghost from her past. He was someone dangerous. Someone connected. And somehow, she'd been involved in keeping me and maybe my mother safe from him. But it wasn't out of love. It was control. All these years, she called me support staff. All these years, she tried to keep me under her thumb. Maybe it wasn't because she saw me as weak, but because she knew exactly how strong I could be. If I ever found out the truth. The ledger had one last entry. A bank account number. Offshore. Cayman Islands. I had a contact there. Used him once for a background check on a client with weird financials. I called him. Gave him the number. An hour later he called me back. There's $3.2 million sitting in that account, he said. Unclaimed. Been dormant since last October. I asked who the account belonged to. He hesitated. It's in your name. I didn't know what to say. She opened it in your name years ago, he continued. Must have had access to your info. But she's been the one moving funds in and out. Suddenly everything made sense. Marlene hadn't just watched me out of spite. She'd been using me. Maybe laundering money through my name. Maybe using the account as a fallback. Either way, it was clear she'd kept me in the shadows not because I didn't matter, but because I mattered too much. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up reading every line in that ledger, every scanned page on the USB. I pieced it together like a puzzle. Here's the truth. Marlene and Harrison weren't just connected. They had been partners, business partners, maybe more. Harrison was a financial fixer with mob ties. Not a movie-type mobster, but a clean suit, offshore account, private jet kind of man. He specialized in laundering money for rich clients who wanted to stay invisible. In 1994, he got caught in a deal that nearly exploded. Marlene helped him cover it up. But she didn't do it for free. She took something from him, proof of his operation. Insurance. Then she found out he'd gotten my mother pregnant. I was leverage. She convinced my mom to cut him out. Promised protection, probably threw in money too. But she didn't do it out of kindness. She used my name. Used my existence. That account in the Caymans? It was her safety net. She moved dirty money through it and kept me in the dark, knowing if anything ever happened, she could pin it all on me. She made me her scapegoat before I could even talk. And yet, she also protected me. In her twisted, controlling way, she kept Harrison out of my life. She made sure I grew up with a normal father, my mom's husband, the man who raised me. So I was both her pawn and her shield. But now she was gone, and I had the files, the money, the truth. And Harrison? He was still out there. I found him. It wasn't hard. He lived in a luxury condo in Miami under a different name. Still moved in powerful circles. Still clean on paper. I flew down. Didn't warn him. I showed up at his building and told the doorman I was his daughter. He came down 20 minutes later in a linen shirt and boat shoes. He looked at me and didn't flinch. I knew this day would come, he said. We sat in a cafe nearby. He sipped an espresso like it was a meeting. You look like your mother, he said. Did she send you? No, I said. Marlene did. That got his attention. She's dead, I said. And she left me everything she took from you. His jaw tightened. I showed him a single page from the ledger. One that mentioned a money trail tied to him, and 3 sitting corporate board members. He went pale. I leaned in close. You don't speak my name. You don't contact my family. You don't try to reclaim a cent. If you do, I have enough to destroy you. Slowly. Just like she did. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, she ruined me. I nodded. And now I'm her legacy. I returned home. I had the account cleaned and closed. Transferred the funds legally through compliance, paid every tax. Made it public under my firm's name. I issued a statement. A gift from a former client. Funds will support programs for young women in business operations. I gave every cent away. Not because I wanted to be noble. Because I didn't want a single part of her in my future. Marlene's name is gone from every archive. No company claims her. No school honors her. The family barely speaks of her. But her shadow lives in me. Because here's the truth. I became everything she said I couldn't be. But I also became something worse, calculated, patient, vengeful. Just like her. And I know that if the roles were reversed, she would have done it all the same. That lapel pin? Keep it in a drawer. Sometimes I stare at it. And I think maybe she was right. I wasn't support staff. I was the next leader. And I made sure she was the last of her kind.